just want black women to just enjoy being beautiful black women again. One of the things that I always say about TreasureTress is that it is like receiving a Christmas present every month, because you don't know what's in the box until you open it. And there is an element of surprise and delight. I do think there's a narrative that's really toxic, like, oh, if you don't own your own business, you're working for someone else, building someone else's dream. And it's like, no, regardless of where you're working, you're building your own dream, because where you're working, you're learning, you're refining your skills, you're becoming better. Everything is a life investment. As much as it's easy as a brand to think that products are just, the hair's just about the products, it's not. It's actually about the experience, it's about the bonding, it's about the conversations, it's about the exploration of like womanhood, manhood, family dynamics.
So when it's all said and done, what do you want your impact on the culture to be? Hi Black Circle family, and welcome back to another episode. As ever, I'm your host Zoe, and today I'm sitting down with someone who didn't just build a business, she built a space. Jamelia Donaldson is the founder of TreasureTress, Europe's first and largest natural hair product discovery platform. But what started as a subscription service has grown into something much deeper, a community rooted in sisterhood, identity and care. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I always like to kind of just jump straight into the chat and talk about the roots and where you started. And I know that there was like a traditional route of like law, and then there was going into hairstylist. So let's jump into it and talk about the relationship that you had with your hair growing up. And at what point did you realise that experience wasn't being properly catered to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think from really early on, I realized that like the product offering wasn't quite right. So I used to love hair. So when I was in nursery, I used to be like playing with people's hair. When I was in reception and school, I used to get in trouble because I was always distracted doing someone's hair. And then by the time I got to primary and secondary, I started earning money by doing people's hair. But I was always fascinated by products. So I used to like literally sit in the bathroom for hours and just read the back of the products. And I always used to find it so interesting that like the products always said dry and damaged hair or brittle and fragile hair. And I used to think, why is our hair described to be that way? Like everything that is associated with our hair seems so negative. And I just thought, how can like a hair type be inherently bad and inherently wrong and always need repair? And so I started thinking, that's a little bit strange. And then the more that I traveled, which we'll probably get into a bit later, the more I traveled, the more I realized, oh, it's actually not like this in every market. Like in some parts of the world, textured hair is actually celebrated and diverse beauty is actually celebrated. So that definitely piqued my interest from a really early age as to like, why do these products describe our hair concerns in this way, and why is the language associated with our hair always so negative?
Absolutely, it's always like kinky or frizzy or unmanageable. And
unmanageable is a big one.
Oh my goodness. So you've spoken about coming from a household where education was prioritized, and I think I remember reading that your parents said yes, you could be a stylist, but you can also own a salon, which I think was great incentive. How did that shape the way you approached entrepreneurship later on?
I think that was, I was going to say that was probably a defining point, but actually I feel like I had always been quite naturally entrepreneurial without knowing. So like the fact that I was earning money doing hair at quite a young age, I guess like my first hustle. So that was interesting. But I think when my mum said that, I think her intention was to like broaden my perspective. And I think that it definitely done that, because in my mind, I loved hair. So the only option I had was to be a stylist, whereas she had the foresight to say, actually, being a stylist isn't where it ends. Like you can also aspire to own the hair salon, even though she definitely didn't want me to go down that path. So I think a lot of like my upbringing and my mum in particular, her emphasis on education has been with the intention of like exposing me and my brother to as many different opportunities and options as possible, so that we can make a more informed decision about like how we navigate our careers and life.
I love that. I love that encouragement as well. I touched on about talking about the law and studying that. So let's talk a little bit more about what happened in that journey.
Yeah, I actually wanted to do everything as a child. I wanted to be a choreographer. Then when I didn't want to be a choreographer anymore, I wanted to be a hairstylist. Then when I was told to like think bigger, my mum was like, oh, you're always arguing with your brother. Why don't you explore a career in law? Yeah. And I was like, do you know what? I am good at arguing with my brother. I will. And then I was like full throttle. Okay, cool. I'm going to study law. I decided not to do A levels, and instead I done the International Baccalaureate, which is a international qualification that is 7 subjects at level standard, and it's internationally recognized. So I knew that I wanted to have an option of where I would go to university, and if I took this qualification over A levels, I could study anywhere in the world. So I done the IB, and then I was like, okay, great, applied for law, application went well, and then it was results day, and results day came, and I was the IB is measured in points, and when the results came I had 32 points and I needed 34 points, and I was thinking they're just going to let me through, and they didn't. And then I was devastated, and then I had the option, like, do I go through clearing and then study law somewhere else? But I really liked the university that I'd selected, so I was like, nah, I'm going to stay with the university and I'm just going to choose a different degree. And again, a big driver in like my life in general is like travel, exploration, exploring international barriers and boundaries. So when I was looking at the options available for the same university but in a different subject, the one that stuck out to me was business and international relations, but not because I wanted to do business at all. Like, business wasn't even something that I considered. It was the international relations part, which required that you do a year's industry placement. And I knew that I was going to use that year to go abroad. So I was like, okay, great, I'll just do this degree, because then I can study abroad and I can get the international experience. And then business was just like, it was just there. Yeah. And I had no idea that I was actually going to go into business as a result of the experiences that I had. But yeah, I don't want to say it was by default, because I think everything is always really well intentioned, and I'm like a big believer in like God, purpose, and things happening the way that they're meant to. But at the time it was really devastating that I wasn't able to pursue the career that I thought was really for me.
Yeah, it's that redirection, isn't it?
It's difficult, it's uncomfortable.
And then but when in hindsight, and which is always a great thing in hindsight, you look back and you're like, oh my God, it really worked out. Really worked out, which is so good. But you touched on New York. So let's talk about that and how that went and how that kind of impacted and influenced your journey.
Yeah, so as part of my degree, it was a 4-year degree. The 3rd year was the placement year. And I was like, I'm just going to maximize this year. So I went to Beijing for a month, and then I went to New York for around 8-9 months. Nice. And then I came back to the UK. So when I was in Beijing, that was probably like the turning point or the tipping point, because I had packed all my stuff, was staying in Beijing. It's super humid. And then halfway through the trip, I can't remember if I lost the products or I ran out of products, but essentially I had no haircare products to use.
Yeah.
And not only, I think I was like one of 2 black women on the whole cohort. The other girl had braids, so she didn't bring products. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And there was a Russian supermarket across the road from our apartment. So I went in there and I was like, I just need to find something to make it work. Couldn't find my bristle brush, so I had to buy a shoe brush and use that. Okay. And a really cheap conditioner and a really cheap gel that was literally like water. And I was like, this is not going to do my hair. So I don't have any pictures from the remainder of that trip. But for me, again, it was another one of those reminders of like, oh, pay attention to this. Because if you live somewhere that's not New York or Atlanta or LA, there's not a lot of options available for you. And especially if you live somewhere like Asia. And I thought that's so interesting. Coincidentally, my next internship was in New York. And I've done like a range of really random internships. So in Beijing, I was doing marketing. In New York, I'd done fashion PR and entertainment PR. Again, not because I was passionate about it, but I just wanted the experience, and I just wanted to live and work in Brooklyn, if I'm being honest. So moved to Brooklyn with one of my friends, done my internship there. And while I was there, I discovered the subscription box business model. So it was at its peak. There were subscription boxes for sweets, dog food, ties, clothes, curly hair, makeup, literally everything. And then I looked at the UK and I was like, we don't have anything like that. Yeah. And so I said to myself, okay, if by the time I return to the UK, there's not a subscription box for curly textured hair products, then I'm going to create it. Obviously having no experience, complete delulu and naivety. But I think that is one of the upsides of being young, is that you just don't think things through. Yeah. You just think, oh, I'm going to do that. And then you actually just believe that you can do it, and you find a way to make it happen. So got back to the UK and I was like, okay, this is cool, but I've been interning for free for a year. I need to make some money. And the best industry to go into to make money is finance. So I was like, okay, let me get an internship in finance to earn some money so that I actually have some savings, and then I can go into my final year of university. So started my internship at BlackRock, which was meant to be a month, and they asked me to extend it to 3 months. And then they offered me the graduate scheme as a result of that. So once I graduated, I went back there, and then that's where I started my professional career in financial services.
Wow. So what strikes me already early on is there's this incredible level of ingenuity with you, and you're pivoting. You know when to pivot, which I don't think, I mean, I can't speak to all young people, but you know, learning how to pivot at such a young age, I think that's such a great skill already to have.
I've actually never looked at it that way.
Yeah, so as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing that you was like, okay, this isn't working or this does work, and making that switch so quickly, and also being brave to take up these internships in Beijing or New York, and I think it's fantastic just to kind of frame it in that way, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think I can be quite stubborn to pivots and shifts, but equally, as I said, like I am very much guided by there's always a bigger plan and a bigger picture. And some things just, like sometimes I just get an inkling about something and I don't know why. So like something was pulling me to New York, and I was like, I can't say why. I'd been to New York before because I've got family there. I had never lived in Brooklyn before, but I was like, I want to go to New York and I want to live in Brooklyn. And while I was there, I had a fashion PR internship. And then the housemates that I was living with, one of their friends were over, and she was like, oh, there's this guy called BJ Coleman. He works in entertainment PR and he's looking for an intern. And I was like, oh, I'll apply. And then she was like, okay. She was like, the interview's tomorrow. I said, okay, great, I'll go. And then I got the train from Brooklyn to Harlem, met with him. And I remembered him from Kimora Lee Simmons' Life in the Fast Lane.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Because I absolutely love her.
Yeah.
And she was his assistant on the show. So like we bonded over that. And then I got that internship. And again, that was another moment where it was like, there's something about just putting yourself in a place. You might not know why you're particularly drawn to a place, a location, an interest, but there's something about just following that because you can't predict what's on the other side of it. So I had no idea that going to New York, I was going to get a business idea. I was going to get some really valuable experience. And there were so many great moments. Like I randomly met Amber Rose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one day he was like, can you take this to Vogue? I was like, sure. I was gassed to go to Vogue. Yeah. And then when I got there, I realized, oh, I'm giving it to Amber Rose. I was actually meeting Amber Rose. Then another time I met Tyson Beckford. And then he was like,
I would have lost it.
Honestly, he was honestly divine. And he called me beautiful. And I almost melted.
Yes.
And then then he was like, can you do this pitch deck? It's for Vivica Fox. And I was like, oh my God, yes. I was just doing like loads of random things. But one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about is like, whatever you're doing, you have to do it to the best of your ability because you actually don't know what it's setting you up for. So everything that I learned then, as far as like putting together a good sponsorship pitch, those are skills that I still use today. Those are skills that I've trained my team on so that we can do the work that we do. So there's something really valuable about like listening to whatever is guiding you, going there, and then when you go up there, being your full self and giving it everything you can. Because I do think there's a narrative that's really toxic, like, oh, if you don't own your own business, you're working for someone else, building someone else's dream. And it's like, no, regardless of where you're working, you're building your own dream. Because where you're working, you're learning, you're refining your skills, you're becoming better. If you've got a good boss, they're going to train you up. They're going to want you to be the best that you can. Everything is a life investment. So I think there's something really, really key about like following that internal guide. And also when you get there, just showing up and smashing it as best you can, because the time's going to pass anyway. You may as well do a good job.
Yeah, agreed. We've spoken about entrepreneurship as well on the podcast as well. So I think people shouldn't discount the importance of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so valuable.
Absolutely. Wanted to pivot just a little bit. You know, in the industry, it often overlooks Black women, but we're always their biggest consumers as well, which, you know, is crazy. So when starting out, did you set the intention to disrupt the industry, or were you just trying to fix a personal problem?
I was fixing a personal problem that I knew would disrupt the industry.
Right.
Because I knew that I wouldn't be able to fix the personal problem without disrupting the industry. And yeah, I've always felt really, really strongly about like having pride in being a Black woman, having pride in like my appearance as a Black woman, I've just always just been so drawn to like the glamour, the regality of Black beauty. And so I knew that in order to solve the issue for myself, I needed to reframe how Black beauty was being marketed and packaged in the UK. And it wasn't being packaged favorably at all, because growing up, I think we had Scary Spice.
Oh gosh, yes.
And that was my homegirl. I loved her.
Yes.
Still do love
that
her.
Representation,
but
right?
that was as far as representation going. And then Cleopatra came out and they had braids, and I was like, okay, cool. So maybe I can consider braids. So there was like small drops of inspiration, but the overwhelming narrative was Head and Shoulders, get in the shower and wash your hair in one go, get out, and it's blowing in the wind.
No.
And for us, that was never going to be a reality. So I did realize quite quickly that in order to solve the problem for myself, I would need to disrupt the industry to do so. But I also knew that I wanted to disrupt the industry because one of the key like motivators for building TreasureTress was my niece. And my brother and his partner announced that they were having a daughter around the time that I was launching TreasureTress, or like finalizing the concept. And for me, I knew that I didn't want her to grow up in a world where she felt like her hair was problematic or an issue. And so I wanted to make sure that she had a brand that made her feel represented, that made her see herself as beautiful, and just helped her understand her hair as opposed to trying to fix it.
No, absolutely. And there's a stat that says that Black consumers spend up to 5 times more on beauty, and yet the experience never reflects that. And I'm thinking of, for instance, like the shop in Peckham, for instance, and when our user experience when we're shopping, and it's not always from, you know, communities that look like us, but they have such a strong hold on the market. So, you know, with saying that, with Black consumers contributing so heavily to the beauty industry, what does it actually look like when that value is reflected properly?
I think it looks like the rise of more culturally sound, culturally authentic and resonant brands, but also brands that stand the test of time. I feel like the US has got lots of really good examples of this. So like Pink Lusters is a brand that was Black owned decades ago, still in the family, still running, still Black owned. And that kind of economic empowerment is what it looks like when the consumer reflects the buyer, the supplier, the distributor, like the whole chain. So I feel like that's what it looks like when we're properly represented. Like we're able to cater to a customer, stick with the consumer and take them on a ride and follow them on their journey, because there are trends, like there's relaxers, natural hair, there's press, there's braid outs, there's braids, there's just so many different waves and trends that we go through. But when the creator of the brand looks like the consumer, they can follow that journey really closely. And I feel like what we do tend to see is that when creators or entrepreneurs build something that they care about, or for a consumer that they care about, they also build other things to support that consumer. So we see a lot of Black founders who, if they get a successful exit, the first thing they do is set up a charity or like a social good organization, so that they can feed back into the community and elevate the next generation of entrepreneurs or like thought leaders. So I think it just creates a really healthy ecosystem that I hope we see more of.
Absolutely. And you know, again, thinking back to the shops that don't always reflect us or our community, what do you think we could do better? Because I know there are shops that are popping up and we're owning that, and that conversation about ownership is really important. But what else can we be doing, I think?
I think the main reason why shops like that continue to do well is because of location. Like they're positioned really strategically, which means that if you're a buyer that is driven by convenience, you're going to default there. Whereas we should be buyers that are driven by customer service, recirculating money within the community, and just valuing ourselves and our shopping experiences and demanding more. So one of the first pop-up shop that we ever done was actually in Peckham, and the whole like driver for us was just like reimagining the retail experience for Black consumers. So one of the things that is staple to hair shops is like dark and like really drudgy interior.
Something from the 90s.
Product overwhelm. Whereas the shop that we built had like amazing lighting, really bright and vibrant walls. We had fresh flowers on the walls. We had cupcakes and drinks upon entry. You could get your nails done, you could shop the products, and people that were helping you shop the products knew how to guide you through the products. And that's remained a staple for like all of our activations moving forward. But for us, it's just, that was a way for us to remind the consumer of like what you should be expecting. Because when white women shop for hair care, they're shopping in Space NK and they're having a beautiful experience. And we too should have a similar experience. And so it's just a reminder to the consumer that just don't settle for less. I know it's convenient, but we have to inconvenience ourselves if we really want to see a significant change in the industry. And once you do inconvenience yourself, like hype the brand, the location, the founder up, and help raise awareness, and write Google reviews, share it on your social media, leave positive comments, share it with your friends and family. And if you don't have a good experience, speak to the company directly as opposed to publicly, so that they do have time to course correct, because reputation repair is a really lengthy and expensive thing to go through. And Black founders just don't have the financial runway to be able to buy time to fix those kind of things. So I think it's just being more mindful and more intentional.
So important what you just said there about reputation, and particularly for Black founders, honestly. And it's, again, I wholeheartedly agree with you about just getting behind as much as possible. The same way you would your favourite celebrity, let's do that with our favourite founders as well. Why not, you know? So that's interesting. So I want to pivot and talk about TreasureTress specifically a little bit more in depth now. And, you know, you've said it started as a subscription box, but it's growing to something much bigger. So when did you realise you were building a community and not just a business?
Really early on, actually, because I started TreasureTress in my bedroom at my mum's house, and I think I probably had about £500 to play with and didn't have any clue what I was doing. But the first thing that I knew I wanted to do was get as close to the customer as possible, because I wanted to make sure that whatever I was building, as much as it was solving a solution for me and my niece and my friends, I wanted to make sure that I was actually solving issues for women beyond my immediate network. And so we hosted something called a Mummy and Me afternoon tea party. And that was really impactful. One, because aesthetically it was just so beautiful and so unique and so one of a kind, in that very rarely does a group of Black mums take their Black daughters to the West End and go and have afternoon tea. So that in itself was significant. But it also made me realise how magical it is to get people in a room and be able to share with them your vision for the brand, but equally listen to their perception of your brand and what they expect or want from you. And I also realised really early on that I was cutting through to consumers in a way that bigger brands weren't able to, because they couldn't have that proximity to customer. And I think one of the upsides of not having a lot of cash to play with is that you get really imaginative and really inventive, because you have to think, oh, okay, cool, how am I going to solve this issue? How am I going to fix this? How am I going to compete when I don't have the budgets to compete? And I've always said that for me, community is an excellent moat for your business, because it's really hard for anyone to replicate your exact community. But equally, if you're a bootstrapped business, if you're a startup business, you want to invest in community as much as possible, because it's going to be your massive differentiator from the bigger brands. They're not going to be able to compete. They're not going to be able to buy your audience, quote unquote. And we see it all the time when really big brands will have events and activations and the turnout will be quite minimal. And then a scrappy startup founder will do an event and they'll have a queue around the corner, because people are drawn to like a personalized story. And I think that shouldn't be underestimated. And when starting a business, you just shouldn't be intimidated by the bigger brands. You just have to find your unique way to do the things that they can't.
Absolutely. Hi, Black Circle family. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. It would really mean the world to me if you could take 2 seconds just to like, follow, subscribe and share, and really help me to build this community and keep the conversation going. Thank you. You can't replicate a culture that you don't understand. And we've seen how businesses and big companies fail at doing that time and time again.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So thinking about those early days, what part of the business challenged you the most?
I feel like the first challenge was network, because as much as like I had tried lots of different things, I hadn't tried beauty.
Right.
And I was working in asset management. So I was trying to build relationships with brands on the evenings and weekends, cold calling, cold emailing, trying to cut through. Not only was I trying to build a relationship with these brands, I was trying to sell them a concept that they weren't familiar with. So subscription boxes weren't a thing at the time. So not only was I trying to sell them a business model, I was also trying to sell them on like buying into the idea and being a part of it. And that was a real challenge because I didn't know anyone. So I was literally just building that network from scratch. I think the next challenge after that one was probably cash.
Yeah.
Cash flow is always an issue because to this day we're still bootstrapped, so we haven't had external funding. And for me, like just trying to figure out like what do I invest in, what do I spend in, and when you make a wrong decision, it's a lot more hurtful than when you have more cash to play with. So that was a definite thing. And then the third thing I would say was team. Building a team is tough. It's incredibly valuable and it can be transformative for your business. But it also requires a transformation within you. And I didn't have experience doing that. Like I was, as much as I had been like super creative, had loads of experiences, I hadn't necessarily undergone like leadership training. I didn't know what to expect. And so that was a really steep learning curve because there's a really beautiful stage when you're at the beginning of a business and everyone's equally excited and all in. But then you have to grow the team and then you have to like retain really good talent and then you have to let go of some people. And that is a really difficult journey and a really lonely journey to go through, especially because in the early days, it is easiest to hire from your network. And so once you hire from your network, who are you then going to rent to or who are you going to go to for help when everyone around you is somewhat connected? And so I think figuring out how to build a support system as a founder and having like your own quote unquote team is really important. I was watching a clip on socials the other day of, you probably saw it was like a black athlete and her coach was like shouting at her like, and I was like, oh my God, I need that. Like, I need that coach. And so that's one of the main things for me at the moment. It's like, how can I find a coach that is going to shout in my face and tell me like, you need to do better. You need to do this better. Like, go for it. Because all of the great athletes, all of the great performers, everyone that is at the top of their craft literally has a team for them as an individual. And when you're trying to build a team for the business, you pour out a lot and it's really easy to just be on empty consistently because you don't have the people pouring into you. And so one of the things that I'm continually reminding myself is that I need a team that pours into me as an individual so that I can then build the team that I want and like sustain the team and grow the team in the way that I want to.
That's a great level of trust there. Has mentorship not played a part or have you been doing it mostly by yourself?
It has. No, I've definitely had mentors and I can vouch for the power of mentorship for sure. I think there is a difference between mentorship and coaches though.
Right.
And I think mentors are great and they should be in all areas of your life for your life. But I feel like coaching for me is like that intensity, that like really direct speaking, that because mentors, if you have a mentor for long enough, they begin to really care about you as a person. They'll hold you accountable, but equally they know you well enough to like spare your feelings. Whereas a coach, I just think of it as like a very ruthless football manager.
Yes.
Like you need to see them.
Get on the field.
I feel like there's a necessity for that. So I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think they're both necessary. But mentorship has been pivotal for me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke about the mother and daughter activation and you are serving everyone from children to grown women. So why is it important to build something that's multi-generational?
I think it's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when I started TreasureTress, ironically, I thought I was building it as a business for little girls. And then when I started looking at the data, I realized the mums were ordering the boxes for themselves as well. And I thought, oh, so there is this like inherently multi-generational thing that comes with doing hair, which shouldn't have been a surprise because we know like the mum buys the hair in the household, mum does wash day for everyone, and dad and brothers just use whatever's in the shower. So it is really a multi-generational experience. But even culturally, we use the term beauty therapy, or we used to use the term beauty therapy for like masseuses, nail technicians, hairdressers, and that's because there is a level of therapy in the beauty experience. And so as much as it's easy as a brand to think that products are just, the hair's just about the products, it's not. It's actually about the experience. It's about the bonding. It's about the conversations. It's about the exploration of like womanhood, manhood, family dynamics. And so for us, we realized that really early on, but the significance of it just continues to prove itself. So we recently launched For Dads Who Can't Braid, which was meant to be a one-off braiding workshop for dads on Father's Day. And we had to continue rolling it out throughout the year. And we've got new dates for this year. And we're actually doing something really exciting at the end of this month where we're rolling it out in prisons for inmates.
Oh, wow. Are you able to talk about that a bit more? Or?
I can,
yeah. Please do. Yeah.
So we're working with Brixton Prison to do a series of 4 workshops. The first 3 will be the dads learning on mannequins. So these are incarcerated dads. There's only going to be a small number of them. They would have gone through like various checks and behaviour protocols, but they're going to learn how to braid, and then on the final day they're going to bring their children in and they're going to do their children's hair in prison.
Wow.
And initially when I got the email I was like, whoa, this is random, but then I was like, it's actually not random, because regardless of like your life circumstance, your title as a father doesn't change, and it's less, for me it's less about the father and it's more about the child. And so there was like a little bit of internal dialogue of like, should we do this? Because we can't support or speak on behalf of someone as to why they're incarcerated. But then as a brand that cares so much about a family dynamic and a family infrastructure, I think we would be doing the kids a disservice if we didn't step up for the fathers so that they can step up for their children. And there's an incredible lady that we've been working with that works at HMP called Anita, and she sold it. She, like, when we were having the conversation, both of us were near tears, because she was like, you have no idea how much this is going to impact these children. And she was like, imagine when they go to school and someone asks them who done their hair and they can say their dad after no one having seen their dad for so long. And I was like, wow, this is the kind of thing that makes me realize that, one, this is not about products. Like, this is about so much more. But 2, you just shouldn't underestimate like the power of starting something, because if you told me that by trying to put like curly hair products in a box for like hundreds of people, I could then be helping people that are incarcerated and need to rebuild like family relationships, I would have never guessed that.
It's incredible, again, and it taps back into what you were saying about everything being, you know, trusting kind of the path of where God's taking you. You just never know how you're going to affect people in their lives. And so I wanted to touch on Dads Who Can't Braid, actually. So where did that idea come from?
I feel like it was bounced around the office. I feel like Candace is the one that deserves the recognition for this, if I'm being honest. But it was something that we had like, we've got an ideas bank of all these different ideas because we're always brainstorming. And then Father's Day was coming up and we're like, should we just try it? Like, let's just do it. And so we trialed it. We asked Raphael Sofaluke from UK Black Business Show to come and host it. And he came up with these insane affirmations that have now become like a staple of all of the workshops. But once the dads got into it, we were like, these guys are having a great time. Like, not only are they having a great time, but they were really bonding as men. And they were so proud of like what they were able to achieve. They were getting competitive between each other.
Of course they were.
And it was just like, wow, like this is, and it just picked up so much traction on socials really organically. And I think it's just the juxtaposition of like, seeing a man playing with a mannequin head or like seeing a man do hair. People are still not used to it, but we should get used to it, because when we think about caring for your child, like doing their hair is actually taking care of them.
Absolutely.
So it was something that, it was a little bit of a random, like, let's just do it, Father's Day, see what happens. And then once it came to life, we were like, oh no, this is a thing, like we're going to keep doing this. So we've got our schedule for the year and we're taking it across to a few different UK cities as well, because it's time.
That's amazing. I can see that even going international as well.
Yes, we're doing one in New York.
In
the summer.
100% can see that happening over there. It's so beautiful. And like we were talking earlier, you know, it's the mother who's really that central carer for the family, especially when it comes to beauty. But I think the way that we're moving in modern times, that it should also be the father.
For sure.
So it's such a great initiative. So you've been quoted to say it feels like it's bigger than buying products, it's about experience. So we're no longer exchanging our money for mediocre experiences, which is great. What does high quality experience for Black women look like for you?
Oh, for me, a high quality experience for Black women means Black women just feeling seen and understood. Like, for us, Curly Christmas was a testament to like us as a brand celebrating 10 years, hitting a major milestone, because very few businesses last that long. But also 10 years of staying like really close to our customer and doing everything we can to serve them. But for us, when we were thinking about the experience, we were like, how can we make sure that Black women feel seen and represented? And we added lots of small touch points, and we thought, okay, if people pick this up, then great. But if not, then we're just glad that we added to the experience. But Black women are so used to being excluded from like glamorous, experiential retail moments, even like influencer activations, that when they do go somewhere that they're seen, heard and reflected, they are really, they're on like high alert. They're paying attention to everything. So we had a Black Santa. Upon arrival, we served sorrel and lemon and ginger tea from Dalgety Teas. There were just so many different things that were like inherently Black in our experience, and we've always made it that way. And for us, the reaction to the women is like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, this makes sense. Oh, my God, this is genius. But the interesting thing is, it's not necessarily genius. It's just us reflecting back to Black women how we see them.
Yes.
So there's affirmations on the mirrors always, because we're reflecting back to Black women how we perceive them. And so I think what makes a experience like supernatural or surreal for a Black woman is just feeling like, oh my God, they see me.
Yes.
Because in so many circumstances, we just don't feel like people see us.
I agree. So again, like you said, it's the point of just being seen and thought of and catered to. That should be our everyday experience. Unfortunately, it's not.
Exactly.
So it's so important. It's so important. I want to pivot a little bit again and talk about legacy and impact.
Yeah.
When you look at what TreasureTress has become, what are you most proud of beyond the business metrics?
Impact, for sure. We've done a lot of different things. 3 things come to mind. So the first thing being the niece that I mentioned when I had the idea for TreasureTress. She's now 11. She's in secondary school. Yesterday, she messaged me to say, Auntie, look at my slip back. Oh. She had like her hair slipped back with curls in the back. But really early on, I think she must have been about 2, and her mum had her in the bath, and her mum took her out of the bath and like blow dried the front bit of her hair and made it straight, and she started crying. And she said, no, I don't want my hair straight. I want my hair big and wild like Auntie Jam. And I was like, my hair's not wild. But the fact that she like was rejecting straight hair and crying out for her natural hair, I was like, oh my God, she's paying attention. Like the visuals, like I take her to everything. She's been in our office when like, she's been ordering people around in the office. When there's like Royal Mail come to do collections, she's telling someone like, answer the door, pack faster. Like she really runs. She really runs teams. But she's been exposed to so many different things. And I'm like, oh wow, she's actually paying attention to it. And it actually is shifting her self-perception. So that's one thing. The second thing would be the teen experience. So in year 3 of TreasureTress, I was just randomly thinking like, oh, do you know what? When I was growing up, youth clubs were really a big part of my childhood. Youth clubs, brownies, rainbows, guides, like all of those things were really central to my formation of new friendships. And then I was looking at society and I was like, we don't have that anymore. Like youth clubs have been defunded, closed down. Like, where is that third space for that age group where you can meet people that don't live on your road or go to your school and, again, expand your perception of the world? And then I was like, well, there's not something that exists. Like, maybe, like, let me just create workshops. So decided to call it the Teen Experience. Reached out to a ton of influencers. Reached out to Simone Powderly, who was here by Simba at the time. And I was like, hey, love what you do in beauty. Like, would you be up for hosting a workshop? And she was like, do you know what? I actually want to help you bring this to life. I don't want to just do a workshop. And I was like, amazing. Yes. So we've worked over the years to like bring the teen experience to life. We halted it during lockdown because it was really hard to keep everyone's attention virtually. But we have done like a few different sporadic teen things with some more coming up this year. But the teen experience was pivotal in so many ways. One, because it engaged so many really thoughtful, impressive and ambitious Black women to come into the space and speak to the young women. 2, because a lot of the young women that came to the teen experience had formed new friendships, and a lot of them had gone to boarding schools and said that they didn't have any Black friends, or their experience with other Black girls was really negative, and this was their first time that they had a positive experience. The like curriculum that we built out for them covered everything from styling your natural hair to age appropriate makeup to how to build a house, how to register a business. We literally taught them like all areas of life. But the thing that stands out the most is the fact that a lot of the friendships that were formed then still exist today.
Oh, nice.
And these girls are big women now.
Yeah.
And like some of them came to Curly Christmas or they come to our various events. And I'm like, oh my God, not to sound like an auntie, but I remember you when you were so much younger and you would barely speak at the workshops. And now you're doing these amazing things. We've even like recruited and worked with a few of them to do like videography and photography because they're so talented. So that for me was a testament of true impact. And then the final thing I would say is like industry impact. When we released our white paper in 2021, that was a moment where I thought like, oh wow, we're quite powerful, or we're getting quite powerful for the industry, because there had never been another report that quantified the economic impact of Black British beauty consumers. And so we were able to pull out some really key statistics about like the power of Black consumers. So Black women accounting for 1% of the population, 10% of the spend on beauty. We massively over-indexed, but the brands weren't paying attention. Brands were being quite lazy and like copying and pasting their US strategy to the UK. And we were like, you can't do that. But again, we were able to prove it with numbers. And I remember being on calls with retailers and they were like regurgitating the stats back to me. And I was like, oh yeah, I wrote that.
Yeah.
Like I wrote that report. And equally, companies like Mintel reached out like, hey, we don't have data on Black consumers. Can we reference your report in our report? And I was like, oh, wow, we're actually changing the products that are on the shelves of these stores based on the information and the insights that we have. We are in that way, like raising the bar as far as what Black consumers expect, and also proving how powerful we are and how much more respect we deserve. And equally, we're changing the landscape of the beauty industry as a whole. So that was really, really powerful. And then a bonus one is like the organizations that we've been able to support and pour into as a result of the business.
It's beautiful. It's seeing your legacy like play out, and all the impact you're having in real time is just phenomenal. So when it's all said and done, what do you want your impact on the culture to be?
On the culture, so within our own culture, I just want Black women to demand more from beauty.
Yes.
I think demand more from beauty, but also enjoy beauty. So one of the things that I always say about TreasureTress is that it is like receiving a Christmas present every month, because you don't know what's in the box until you open it. And there is an element of surprise and delight. It's like adventure. It's like childlike wonder again, where someone is gifting something to you, but really you're gifting it to yourself. And it's like, how can women just remember to show up for themselves and take care of themselves? And where the box arrives every month, it's like you have a reminder that like you need to get through these products. You need to wash your hair. You need to take time to deep condition and light a candle, read a book, and just reminding Black women to like take care of themselves, demand more, but also enjoy beauty, because I think there is just so much pressure as a Black woman to like be perfect. If you straighten your hair, you shouldn't be doing that. If you relax your hair, you shouldn't be doing that. If you're wearing your natural hair, people don't like it. Like there's just so many opinions about the way we look. And I just want Black women to just enjoy being beautiful Black women again.
Agreed. That's a beautiful note to finish us on. Before we close fully, I like to do a thing called the full circle moment. So all it is if you could go back to the very start of your journey, what would you tell your younger self about this path, where this path would take her, and who she'd become to get there?
Ooh.
So just advice, I guess, to your... I was saying it in a fancy way, but yeah.
Advice I would give to Jamelia that was just starting TreasureTress. I would say brace yourself, because it's going to require you to consistently evolve and become a new person. Because there is... I think as humans, like we desire comfort and complacency, I guess. But unfortunately, when you're an entrepreneur, that can't exist, because you have to consistently like recreate yourself. You have to constantly evolve. You have to constantly grow. So I would say just brace yourself and be prepared to consistently become a new version of yourself, because the journey is going to require that of you.
Brilliant. Jamelia, thank you so much for coming down. You are such a powerhouse, and you are changing impact for Black women in Britain and beyond, and it's so needed. So thank you for your time, and thank you for all the work you're doing. If people want to follow you, where can they find you?
Sure. So follow TreasureTress
Yes.
at TreasureTress, TRESS. And then my own social is Jamelia is obsessed on pretty much every platform except for TikTok, where it's Jamelia Donaldson.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for joining us once more. And if you want to follow the Black Circles journey, we're across all socials on the Black Circle podcast. Thank you.